Hello everyone, my name is Anitsu and I'm back with another Digi Finance video. So today I'm back at UUTI taking a look at their bi-monthly sales rankings for each of the best-selling card in each of the different rarities minus Secret Rare for the given time period of July 15th to July 28th. So this is right before the Classic Collection is released in Japan, and we could take a look and see at what each of the best-selling cards are, and correlate that to how their meta is behaving. So taking a look at the best-selling SR during this time period, we have Agumon Bond of Courage. So Agumon Bond of Courage is a very powerful and very popular red deck that kind of comes in and out. A lot more people are preferring Jesmon, but a lot of people already have their Jesmons, and they're still looking to pick up some very exciting decks to play, and the Agumon Bond of Courage deck is looking to be a very powerful and very exciting deck. So what this card is doing is he has an ability where when this card is attacking, if you have a Tamer in play, you get to delete an opponent's Digimon with 13,000 DP or less. So this is just a very good recursive form of removal that's tied to the on-attack skill. So every time he's going to be swinging, he's going to be popping one of the opponent's Digimon, and that's just very, very powerful, especially since we know that the Agumon Bond of Courage deck has Warp, so you could just raise out your Agumon, warp into Bond of Courage, swing, remove the opponent's Digimon, and start steamrolling from there. And then on top of that, he also has another ability where during your turn, once per turn, when an opponent's Digimon is deleted, then they get to discard the top card of their security. So not only is he deleting one of the opponent's Digimon, but he's also burning the opponent at the same time, and with decks like Security Control and Three Musketeers running around and being very powerful and problematic with all of their options in the security, burning the opponent is really good because it doesn't check those cards in the security, so it just allows you to try to deal with the opponent's security in some various different ways, making Agumon Bond of Courage just a very powerful card to be utilizing. And then taking a look at the Japanese meta, unfortunately they decided not to update some of the deck lists and data during this time period, so we don't know exactly what was going on during this time period, but based on some of the more recent events, we could still correlate to what we have to the data given. So we could see that even though red is on the decline, red is still just a very powerful and very popular color. It is still in the topper echelons of the colors being played in the overall meta. And if we look at the red decks being used, we see that more people are using Bond of Courage decks on top of Jesmon, which is still being continuously used. And Bond of Courage is obviously a very powerful deck that more people seemed to have bought into. So one of the big contributing factors to people buying into the Bond of Courage deck is actually due to the support that the deck is getting from the Classic Collection. So we know that the Classic Collection Agumon helps you dig for your Tamers and your cards with Agumon. So Agumon Bond of Courage is a card that you could take off of this, and then obviously you're going to want to try to take the red tie. So it only makes sense that a card like this is going to directly support that deck, giving it even more power than it did before, making it a more viable option than it was in the past. And then on top of that, you also have the new Greymon that is allowing you to play a Tamer that costs 3 or less, that's name is Tai Kamiya, from your hand for free. So when you Digivolve into this version of Greymon, you're going to be able to play your 3-cost Tai to allow you to warp into your Agumons that much more efficiently, making, again, the deck overall more powerful than it was before. Next, on to the best-selling rare during this time period, it is going to continue to be Rebellimon. So Rebellimon is a really good card for both black and purple, and because he can go into and support both colors, that just makes him a very good card to want to buy up for a whole bunch of different decks. So what this card is doing is he has a nice when Digivolving ability where you get to discard 1 card for your hand, and this Digimon gains the blocker and the retaliation abilities until the end of the opponent's turn. So not only for purple is he supporting the deck just by allowing you to discard cards, which for Taitamon and various other strategies in purple. Discarding a card can trigger various abilities, making him very good to be utilizing, on top of which just him being a blocker with retaliation is already very annoying, and especially if you digivolve the Digimon into something else, then those buffs will transfer over, so he's looking to be just a very powerful Digimon to be utilizing for just those types of abilities alone. And then on top of that, he also has the unique ability where during both players' turns, this Digimon is also treated as a black Digimon because he is purple natively. So we know black in BT06 wants to be playing around with the decoy mechanic, so this is trying to play around with the decoy mechanic. It's also really good in black just because it could give it your Digimon blocker for the turn. We know purple has discard synergy, and we know that purple and black are two very fun colors that a lot of people like to be playing around with, making Rebellimon a really good card that people are buying into. And then taking a look at the Japanese meta, again, we're missing the data from that time period, but we could see based on what a lot of people are prepping and have picked up for the Classic Collection early on, we could see this huge spike in Black's overall playability, and Black is looking to be in a pretty decent spot just because Black has a lot more decks that it could possibly play. So we know, thanks to the Classic Collection, that Diaboromon is coming back in some new and powerful ways just because the Classic Collection is updating those. Then we know Machinedramon is looking to be very powerful. We know that Royal Knights is still really good, and we know that Commandramon is also on the rise just because of a lot of the new generic tools that Black is getting, because Black also is interacting with on delete and filling up its trash and trying to utilize its trash a little bit more, so Rebellimon could also help in those strategies. Even though Rebellimon hasn't made an appearance in any of these decks, it doesn't necessarily mean that the card is bad, and people at that time period were probably speculating on what is good and what it could be utilized with, thanks to the cards coming out in the Classic Collection that came just shortly after. So we know, taking a look at the Classic Collection, that Black is trying to interact with cyborgs and machines, and Rebellimon is a cyborg that Black could be utilizing because it also counts as a black card while it is on the field. Keep in mind, if it's in your hand, deck, or security, or trash, it's still counted as just a purple card, so keep that in mind. But the Classic Collection is interacting with typing a little bit more than color locking, so the fact that it is a cyborg does matter still. So you could think about utilizing it with Hagurumon, just because Hagurumon interacts with machines and cyborgs. And then, like I said, it's interacting with Machinedramon, or could interact with Machinedramon. Granted, its on playability won't be able to trigger itself off of Rebellimon, but you could still use Rebellimon to digivolve up into Machinedramon to still have some very powerful effects, and you could still utilize the card in some very powerful ways. Purple still is kind of in an interesting spot. They're kind of just updating a whole bunch of their current strategies. So Rebellimon is just a generically decent card to think about, but Taitamon and Discard Synergy is still looking to be very powerful and very prominent, especially thanks to some of the spoilers that we got from BT07, with the fact that they're going to continue to play with Discard Synergy thanks to the new Nidhoggmon and his evolution line. Next, on to the best-selling uncommon during this time period, we have Ginkakumon Promote. So Ginkakumon Promote is looking to be a very powerful purple card for a couple of different decks to be utilizing. The most powerful and common deck that he's going to be utilized, same with Rebellimon, is going to be in the Three Musketeers deck, just because in Three Musketeers, Rebellimon counts as both of the colors, so it's covering two of the three colors that deck is playing around with, and Ginkaku Promote is also just another very powerful card to be utilizing, just because he is a purple card you could res, and he has the Rush ability. So the Rush ability allows him to attack the turn he comes into play, so the idea is you're going to res Ginkakumon Promote, and then you're going to swing with Ginkakumon Promote the turn he is res, making for a very powerful interaction for that deck. And then on top of that, he has an on-play ability where from your trash you get to place one Kinkakumon and one Ginkakumon underneath him as inheritable sources. And then when two cards are placed underneath him due to this effect, then you get to draw a card and gain one memory. So not only does he interact with Ginkakumon and Kinkakumon, so you could play a purple deck that is interacting with that, but on top of that, you're also going to be drawing a card and gaining a memory for doing that. Three Musketeers doesn't really care about doing that because most of the time they're just going to be playing him from the trash and then just utilizing him just because he has Rush. So that's the big interaction there, and that's the main reason why he is doing so well, is because just a lot of people are playing Three Musketeers, and Three Musketeers is looking to be a very powerful deck in the meta. So taking a look at the Japanese meta, unfortunately, again, that information is missing during this time period, and again, unfortunately, they don't include hybrids in this graph, so we can't exactly get a good picture of what the card is doing outside of just looking at the card and the decks that he's being played in, and he is seeing some play in the Three Musketeers deck. As we can see here, Three Musketeers are playing him as like a 1 or a 2 of, just because they could use cards to res him and continue the aggression that way. So the big combo play that they generally will be making is that they're going to use Bellastarmon to basically play her for very little and then utilize her on playability to play a option that costs 7, and the option that costs 7 that they're going to play is going to be a Nailbone. So Nailbone is going to play Ginkaku Promote, and then Ginkaku Promote has the Rush ability. So that's just what's making this type of interaction so powerful, and why Ginkakumon Promote is looking to be a really good selling card during this time period. And then the best selling common during this time period is looking to be Sukamon. So it's really interesting that Sukamon, all the way back from BT03, is the best-selling common during this time period, but it is a really good card to think about utilizing for the grand scheme of the meta and where things are shaping up, just because of how this card is going to be utilized. So the first big thing about the card is his stat line. He has a play cost of 3, evos for 2, and 1000 DP, so he could actually be sniped by a lot of potential removal, so that might be a contributing factor. And then on top of which, he also has an on-delete ability where you get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and then if one of them is a Chumon, you get to play him for free, and then the rest go to the bottom. So his on-delete ability is pretty decent considering Black has been playing around with on-delete abilities more and more. So those are all contributing factors to help make Sukamon be the best-selling common during this time period. As I mentioned before, taking a look at the Japanese metadata, we could see that Black has been a more popular color now more than ever, and thanks to the Classic Collection, it definitely adds a lot of extra playability to the color because it gives them a lot of new tools to be interacting and playing around with. But unfortunately, we could see that Sukamon is not one of the cards that's being played in any of the top decks, so it's really puzzling on what is making that card sell so well, and it probably has to do, as I mentioned before, on how you could utilize the card and the grand scheme of what the meta is looking like. So taking a look at what some of the best decks in the meta are, we know that Security Control and Three Musketeers are 2 of the best decks in the entire format, so they are playing a little card that is acting as a really good board removal card, so having a body that could potentially replace himself is already looking to be pretty good, and as I said, he could also snipe some certain removals that they could be playing with from their security, so Happy Bullet Showering is a card that actually could be sniped from the security targeting Sukamon to get deleted, because Sukamon has some really low DP, and then Ultimate Flare is just another card that Sukamon could get deleted off of when checking the security, so that way you could try to keep a consistent body on board. And then on top of that, like I said, Black has been playing around with on-delete abilities more and more, so if you use Sukamon to Digivolve off of a Pagumon, it helps trigger Pagumon's on-delete ability to add a black card off of the top of your deck to your hand, which is pretty decent. And then you also have Junkmon, which you could utilize it to gain a memory off of his deletion, and you could pair it up with a Parabolic Junk to gain additional memory off of his deletion, and you still have Chumon that can be played off of him. And on top of that, you have Izzy to just help look for your Chumons to see if it is appropriate to try to have Sukamon be deleted, so that way you have a little bit of knowledge on how you want to be utilizing the card. And you even have Izzy and Joe to act as a way to draw some cards if the opponent is going to be deleting Sukamon, just because this is a nice duo tamer that allows you to draw cards when one of your black Digimon is deleted during the opponent's turn. So Sukamon is a really interesting card to think about all of the different ways he could be used in the grand scheme of the meta and the grand scheme of how he wants to be played. So I think this is just more of a fun card to think about more than a meta card, but who knows, we are missing that bit of information. And then hopping over to the English side of the card game, Battle of Omni is the newest set to just get released, so that's where a lot of the hotness is going to be, and it looks like it is a rather popular set, and it looks like a lot of the prices are still crushed under the sheer pressure of the quantity that the set was printed in. So there's just a lot of the cards to go around, and because of the sheer quantity of the cards, it definitely helped crush a lot of the prices on the cards. As we can see, a lot of the alt arts and secret rares are still relatively holding strong, but that's to be expected considering box toppers, alt arts, and secrets is usually where the money is. But we could see that some of the SRs are bouncing back and trying to retain what little value they have left, and some of them definitely took huge spikes as the overall stock and quantity of the cards dried up of all of the cheap ones. That just left some of the more expensive ones to start showing up. So we could see that, like, as an example, there's only like 20 listings under Hexablaumon, and Hexablaumon on day one was literally selling for like $3, and now he's $10, just because everyone was buying up that $3 version, meaning that that card really wasn't worth $3. People were just trying to undercut each other super extra hard to try to push the sale of the card forward just to get off the card as quickly as they possibly can, and now we're starting to see some rebounding in a lot of the cards. Granted, not all of the cards are rebounding as hard as Hexablaumon, but some of the cards are still rebounding and are on the rebound. So right now the market is just in a huge fluctuation point, but a lot of the SRs did initially get crushed under the pressure of just how many sellers and the sheer quantity it was, and some of the cards are probably not really going to be recovering as quickly or as much as they should be. As we could see, like with Armageddon, there is 103 listings of the card, and not to mention how many quantities each seller could have, so there's just too much of the card for it to be a high price, and it definitely hurts the overall EV of the set, making boxes not really worth buying unless you're trying to get into that chase to try to hunt for a particular secret rare or alt arts that you're looking for. But the box EV, the fact that it is just so low, and it was so low, created a really feels bad moment for buying booster boxes, because stores were still selling these booster boxes for like 95, 100, 110, all the way up to as high as 130 and 150, and the set definitely is not worth that price. You'll probably on average open about $60 to $70 worth of card value as of right now in terms of the overall box EV, just because of how low a lot of the cards sunk. I think right now it's a little bit better. It's probably around 70 to 80 in terms of the box EV, but I digress. It's just not really worth opening booster boxes if the boxes are going to keep behaving like this going forward, and stores have to understand and realize that it's probably not worth it for them to try to oversell the product just to try to make a little bit extra money, when I know for a fact stores are buying these booster boxes for about $55 to $65, so they could still make some profits just by selling it to you at, you know, a reasonable price and not trying to overcharge you for the boxes, because as we can see with the way the secondary market is behaving, it's not worth buying the boxes if the cards are going to be this cheap in the end. And then as far as the rest of the market goes, you could see that the market is kind of performing about as you'd expect based on what people are wanting to pick up and play. So you could see that Gomamon is a really popular card that people are buying up just because Hexablaumon is a really popular and very powerful deck, so they want to make it as strong as they possibly can, so this Gomamon is really good for that. Then you have Pulsemon, which is really good in Lord Knightmon, Yellow Wargreymon, and Yellow Rookie Rush, so that's why it's performing as well as it is. And then you also have the Promo Palmon, which basically if you're playing any Digiburst strategy in green, this is just an absolutely fantastic card to be utilizing. And then you have Lilithmon, because Lilith Loop is really, really popular. And then we also have the Diaboromon promo, just because people are looking to play Diaboromon, and this card is a really good card that fits into that strategy. I don't necessarily think that this is the greatest card for that strategy, but it is a card to utilize in that deck, and that deck is also looking to be pretty popular. And then Lucimon is also really good for basically any yellow deck, period. You have some other cards that are doing about what you'd expect them to do. So TK is just another really good tamer to utilize for basically any yellow deck ever. Chaosmon Volderarm is basically in the same boat. It's yellow's only level 7 that they have access to. Omnimon has taken a huge hit in terms of his overall playability and popularity, so his price came down, and then when people are seeing his price go down, people are thinking, oh, I could actually buy this card now, so now they're buying him up while he's on the low. And then you have Metal Greymon, which is looking to be another really good card to be utilizing for the Greymon deck and Omni Shoutmon, so he has multiple decks that he can go into. So the market is performing about as well as you'd expect it to from any new set coming out, introducing new decks, and people are getting ready and getting excited about those new decks. But taking a look at sealed product on TCG Player, I think TCG Player is leaning more in the correct direction, and sellers on TCG Player are leaning more in the correct direction on properly pricing out their booster boxes. So I hope a lot of LGSs is taking some big notes, just because the boxes are not worth what they were in the past, just because there is more stock available than what people might be anticipating. So they don't need to overvalue the boxes, especially when a lot of the singles in those boxes are not making the EV of the box worth what you're going to be paying for the box. So it is very important for stores to not overcharge people on their boxes, so that way product can actually start moving and the store can get rid of their stocking quantity and make their customers happy, because a store makes more money off of returning customers and them participating in events, buying snacks and various other supplies, than trying to overcharge people on their booster boxes. I'm not trying to tell stores what to do, and I'm not trying to tell people how to spend their money. Either can do whatever they want. At the end of the day, I just want the game to be in a healthy position where everyone is happy and we all can play the game at a reasonable and affordable level. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.